You know, that's the ultimate, question as you enter any season. You know, who are your playmakers? Who are the guys that are going to start for you, play for you? The guys you'll be able to depend on and trust and make plays. And what are you ultimately good at? You know, what you think you're good at now might not necessarily be what you're going to be holding your hat on, come the season time. The faster we're able to find out who we are and what we do well, the better off we'll be. Hopefully that comes sooner than later. We've had some strong finishes the last couple of years as a staff where we've been, and if we can find that out sooner, hopefully we'll get up to a good start and keep that thing going. So that's the the plan going into camp. Who can do what well and who's going to play.
And how does Christian factor into all this? Trying to find out who's going to improve and all that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about him, he's one of the guys Coach Galt mentioned in the summer conditioning. He just does his job as the best of his capabilities, and he competes with himself, and we have a lot of guys in here that are going to be competing for jobs, and he's a guy that just wants to be the best, so he's going to do whatever he has to do to be great, and he's going to do whatever he has to do to have the guys around him be great, whatever that might be, encouraging them, patting them on the butt, giving them a little something to get going, whatever it may be. He's an integral part of what we want to do, quite obviously. He's just a great leader and a great worker. And when guys see that, and he's one of your best players, that raises everyone else's game.
John, Mark Wogenrich in Allentown. Coach Franklin had mentioned about the assistants addressing chemistry and morale with this team maybe a little more than you guys have done in the past. What have you done as coaches that's been unique with this group that maybe you haven't had to previously?
For our staff, comparing the last two places we've been to, when we went down to Vanderbilt, it was more, hey, this is how we're going to win, this is how we're going to do things, and this will make us ultimately be where we want to be. They've had some success here, and they've been through a lot, so it's a totally different situation. So we got to be able to prove to them that we know what we're talking about, and trust. You have to be able to trust us that we know what we're doing. We have to be able to find out what makes them tick, because it's been done in the past, and I don't know if there's anything different. Maybe the approach is different on what you say to them on a day-to-day basis, but ultimately time builds relationships, and the more that they hang around you, you hang around them, that builds. So I think at this point they're ready to go. We are here. We're at one, and they trust us and we trust them as we're going into the season.
You've said before that the idea that you guys have is to scheme towards your strengths and away from your weaknesses. But at what point in camp do you have to know that by, or do you already know it and that'll start right away today? At what point do you have to have that locked down before you had to play UCF in Ireland?
Right, like I said, the sooner the better. The sooner the better. Just being around short or long as I've been in this profession, you never ultimately know going in who you're going to be or what you're going to be and why. Sometimes you do if you got a lot of returners back or whatever, but that doesn't always end up as planned. And as you go into camp, you have an idea. We have a lot of things on paper day by day by day by day by day. Some of those things we may or may not get to. Some of those things we may be good at than the other things. And that's our job as coaches, to be able to teach the information, have them process it in a manner where they're going to be able to play fast, and then for us to be able to figure out what they do best ultimately is what we're going to do on game day, because you only get so many amount of reps, so many amount of situations in a game, and each play is extremely important. So our jobs this camp is to find out what we do as well as we possibly can going into week one and go from there.
The good thing about when you have three guys like that, we have a couple other guys in that room. When they kind of set the bar, the rest of the room kind of keeps up with them. So for the younger guys, especially the freshmen that just came in, keeping up with them is a big, step in their development. They see how they work, they see how they prepare, they get a chance to follow a good leader, and that's one exciting part about having that kind of leadership in that room and that experience. The younger guys come in, they get to follow in their footsteps immediately. You don't have to necessarily train someone how to do that.
Hey, Charles, Travis Johnson.
How you doing, Travis?
Times. Good. How about yourself?
Awesome.
James just said that ideally your third running back is one of your primary return guys. How have you seen the return game kind of shake out, being what you saw in spring ball? And is that kind of the biggest thing you guys need to figure out in special teams here in camp?
Well, we have a few guys that we think have a chance. You'd love for your third running back to be that guy, just from a numbers standpoint. Plus, it helps them get reps. But as spring goes on, we went through spring, as we go through camp, the guy that develops as the most, the guy with the most talent, the dangerous guy back there who can protect the ball, run the scheme, trust the scheme, will be the guy. Like I say, you love for whoever the third tailback is that he does that, so he's constantly getting reps. But the best guy's going to play. I'm looking for the fastest, strongest guy. When you find him, you call me, please.
Hey, Coach. John McGonigal, Philadelphia
Hi, John.
Daily News.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome.
Good. So, from a kicking perspective, obviously you got Sam coming back. He's a veteran guy. But in the punting game, you guys lose Alex Butterworth, and you have two true freshmen, and then Chris Gullah, I think, is a redshirt freshman. So, how secure, how confident are you guys in the punting game, and really, how are you going to ease those guys in?
Well, we're very confident right now because we got a lot of competition. The one thing about not having a proven guy, when you go out and you recruit and you bring in a lot of competition, you know that those guys are going to have to compete every day. So whoever becomes the guy is going to be tested because he's going to have to compete every day from now until we get to Central Florida. So we know whoever it is. You run into an issue when you don't really have anybody to push the guy who's in front. You worry about does he get kind of lackadaisical, does he fall in the groove, but when every day you got to come out because you got 2 or 3 guys behind you that are going to compete. When you win the job, you want it fair and square.
Phil Gross, Blue White Illustrated, Coach.
Hi, Phil.
Special teams also. Coach Franklin talked about the fact that you really increased your overall team speed. Hurt Penn State on special teams last year. How important is that increased speed, especially in the freshman class, going to help you as a special teams coach?
Well, it helps. I mean, it's definitely a help because anytime you can play faster, you race angles, you cover better. You're able to defeat some people in coverage. Your return game's better. As a team, we got faster. So now, as Coach talked about, every day that we compete against each other, we're competing against people that have gotten faster. So we're getting closer to game speed on a daily basis. And that's what you want. You want to get as close to game speed as possible without having, to go full speed tackle every play, every day in practice. And that's what we've been able to do with Coach Galt and the strength staff and all the work that these guys have done this summer is increase the competition level, increase the speed of practice. So now when we get to the games, it's easy because all week was tough.
Very easy. I say this all the time. And each defense, first of all, takes on its own identity. And the identity of this group is still yet to be determined. The question's asked a lot of times, are you a 4-3? Are you a 4-2-5? Are you 3-4? Are you a 3-2-6, a dime defense? And the answer is I think we do a really good job as a staff of identifying good players and putting them in a position to be successful. So, the best players are going to play. So there's still a little bit of time, like I said, in developing the identity of this group. But what is non-negotiable is we're going to be an in-your-face style of defense that's a lot of fun to play, and it'll be built on relentless pursuit to the football and never-ending pressure. And that's what we talk about all the time.
Travis Johnson from the Center Daily Times. To kind of follow up on that question, based on what you saw in the spring, how have your ideas and expectations for this defense kind of evolved throughout the summer?
Well, I think the thing that happens in the spring is you kind of recognize the hand you've been dealt. When we got here in February, it was about developing relationships with our players. Keep in mind, I always say it's funny, I'm actually the 4th defensive coordinator these guys have had in 4 years. So especially for the 4th and 5th year seniors, getting to know them, getting to know me. A lot of the same things that Coach Butler had done last year, just different terminology in some ways. And we feature some different things maybe that he did a year ago. Each group and each coach has his own thoughts and ideas. The spring went well, and it was really about identifying who our playmakers are, identifying our roster. And, and then what you do, it's not like the NFL where you can sign free agents or make trades or draft guys. It's all about recruiting. We had recruited a class, and now we knew we had some holes in our roster that we needed to get filled. I'm really excited about our defensive ends. I contend that, between Deion Barnes and C.J. Elanian, we've got as good a 1-2 punch as there is in the league. Really excited to see Brad Bars get out there. He's overcome injuries and put himself in a position to be really good. And Carl Nassib and Garrett Sickles are good players. Inside, Austin Johnson and Zetto are really good players. Some young guys have to step up behind them. Obviously, everybody's talked about Mike Hall and the leadership he provides from the linebacker position. I'm really looking forward to seeing Brandon Bell and Naeem Wortman, in training camp. And we've toyed around and tinkered in today's game with all these spread offenses. We've toyed around with playing a third safety, a 4-2-5 package. You guys have written a lot about the star position of that field linebacker, where you have 2 box backers and a guy in the field, and that could be a number of different people depending on what the situation calls for. And I think, we're excited about the experience in the secondary. I think Adrian Amos, I've said this 100 times now, has as good a skill set as anybody I've ever been around. Ryan Kaiser's the proverbial coach on the field and is really kind of an underrated athlete. You go back and watch the film from last year, there's a guy who made a lot of plays. And Jordan Lucas is ready to take his game to the next level. And Trevor, Williams has really embraced being a corner and maybe has improved as much as anybody over the course of the summer. So really looking forward to working with those guys in the back end.
Mark Brennan at Fight On State. You talked about that star position. Could you explain a little bit more what that is and what kind of athlete are you looking to be in that position? Or is it multiple types of guys?
It is. It's exactly what it is, multiple kind of guys. I mean, the star, the game has changed. I mean, we're facing, this isn't 20 years ago, when it was rock'em sock'em robots run downhill. I mean, the field is, there's more skilled athletes on the field on offense than ever before. It's, there's more 3 and 4 wide receiver sets than ever before in today's modern no-huddle spread offenses. So defensively, what you're trying to do is try to maximize your athletic ability on the field. And that body type, that tall, long, athletic, hybrid safety outside linebacker has become a key component for what we do. Really I always use the analogy in baseball, they always used to say you're really good up the middle at catcher, pitcher, second and short, and center field. What we do is I think, if you look at us, our 2D tackles and our middle linebacker are kind of those inside guys. Our ends, our outside linebackers, and our safeties kind of are small, medium, large, medium, and small, that body type. Real athletic on the perimeter, able to make plays, do types of things, and somewhat interchangeable parts. And then our corners out on the perimeter, they're the guys who are going to lock people down. And that's the formula that I've observed to be successful in college football and in this league specifically.